1909 to 1958. It is called a wheat penny because the reverse side features two stalks of wheat, symbolizing prosperity and agricultural strength in America. 1938. The United States was slowly recovering from the Great Depression of the 1930s. Franklin D. Roosevelt was president, and his New Deal programs were in full swing to stabilize the economy. Coin production at the U.S. Mint during this time was steady, but demand for pennies was not as high as in earlier decades due to reduced economic activity. The coin's design was created by Victor David Brenner in 1909 to commemorate the 100th anniversary of Abraham Lincoln's birth. Lincoln became the first real historical figure to be featured on a U.S. coin intended for circulation. Features the bust of Abraham Lincoln facing right, with the inscriptions "In God We Trust" at the top, "Liberty" on the left, and the date 1938 on the right. Displays the words 1 cent and United States of America framed by two wheat stalks, with e pluribus unum out of many, one at the top. The 1938 wheat penny was struck at 3 mints. Philadelphia No Mint Mark largest production, Denver D Mint Mark moderate production. San Francisco S Mint Mark lowest production, more sought after, and measures 19.05 millimeters in diameter. These coins were widely used in everyday transactions during the late 1930s and early 1940s. Due to the economic conditions, people tended to hold on to their coins longer, and fewer high-quality uncirculated examples survived. Circulated examples are common and worth only a small premium over face value. Uncirculated and mint state coins can be worth $5 to over $100, especially if they have sharp strikes and red road original luster. The 1938 TES and 1938D in high mint state are scarcer and command higher prices. The 1938 wheat penny represents the tail end of the pre-World War II coinage era. Just 3 years later, the U.S. would enter World War II, with in 1943. For the steel penny, some known collectible varieties include doubled, die-obverse, doubling on the date or lettering, repunched mint marks, RPM common for 1938D and 1938S. Off-center strikes and die cracks increase value among era collectors. Legacy of the 1938 wheat penny. The 1938 Liberty wheat penny remains a favorite among collectors for its historical connection to the Great Depression era and its lower mintage figures compared to earlier wheat cents. Well-preserved examples, especially with strong red color and minimal marks, are prized additions to coin collections. The year 1938 sat in a transitional period for the United States. The worst of the Great Depression had passed, but the economy was still fragile. Millions of Americans were working under New Deal public works projects, and the idea of Social Security and minimum wage was new. Internationally, tensions were rising in Europe as Nazi Germany annexed Austria, setting the stage for World War II. Against this backdrop, coins like the 1938 wheat penny quietly passed through the hands of factory workers, farmers, and shopkeepers. When the Lincoln wheat cent debuted in 1909, it was revolutionary because no U.S. coin intended for circulation had ever depicted a real person. The 1938 issue continued to honor Lincoln nearly 30 years after its introduction. The choice of Lincoln during the Depression years was symbolic, a reminder of unity, perseverance, and leadership during hard times. The Philadelphia Mint struck the majority of 1938 cents, producing more than 156 million coins. This was the main supply for the eastern and midwestern United States. Coins from Philadelphia carried no mint mark, which sometimes confuses new collectors. With a mintage of about 20 million, the 1938D was far scarcer than the Philadelphia issue. Denver pennies primarily circulated in the western and central U.S., meaning many never reached East Coast banks. Many Denver cents also show strong strikes, but they are harder to find in pristine red and circulated condition. The 1938S was the lowest mintage of the year at just over 15 million coins. San Francisco pennies were mostly used along the Pacific coast, and because of heavy usage, high-grade survivors are scarce. This makes them particularly desirable to collectors. The 1938 wheat penny's 95% copper composition came from both domestic mining and imported sources. At the time, the U.S. imported copper from countries like Chile and Canada. Just a few years later, copper would be considered too vital for the war effort to use in coins, leading to the 1943 steel cents. Victor David Brenner's portrait of Lincoln was inspired by a photograph taken by Anthony Berger in 1864. By 1938, Brenner had already passed away, but his design remained untouched. This consistency dollars today. These tiny copper discs are more than just pocket change. They're historical treasures forged during a time of war, sacrifice, and transformation. 1942 was no ordinary year. It was the heart of World War II. The U.S. was pouring its resources into the war effort, and even the materials used in coins were reconsidered. Copper, once common in pennies, was being diverted for ammunition and equipment. The U.S. Mint had to adapt fast. Most 1942 Lincoln wheat pennies were struck using standard copper alloy, 95% copper and 5% tin and zinc. But rumors, mysteries, and verified discoveries tell us there's more to the story. A black and white reenactment of a mint employee discovering a strange blank on the floor, some ultra-rare 1942 wheat pennies were struck on leftover blankets from previous or experimental runs. A few even made it onto bronze blanks intended for foreign coins. These coins were never meant to exist, and that makes them extraordinary. Montage of expert appraisals, coin graders, and auction hammers slamming down coins with errors like off-metal strikes, double dies, or repunched mint marks can push the value of a 1942 penny into the hundreds of thousands, or even the $1 million mark when authenticated and auctioned. In 2019, a collector paid over $1 million for a 1942 wheat penny struck on a silver dime, reminding Americans of unity. The reverse wheat stocks, which had been used since 1909 to represent prosperity and agriculture. These elements together created a powerful patriotic message during one of America's most challenging times. Collector carefully. But rarity and history aren't the only reasons for its value. Condition matters. A 1942 wheat penny in mint state MS67 or higher with a unique mint error is a dream find for numismatists. Coins with full red luster, uncirculated quality, or clear doubling command astronomical prices. Each mint struck these coins, but some mint marks are harder to find than others. For instance, the 1942s penny in pristine condition is exceptionally rare. 19 for 2D double die obverse errors are highly sought after. A missing mint mark, or one with repunch characteristics, can boost value significantly. Collectors today are on the hunt. Auctions from Heritage, Stax Bowers, and eBay regularly feature these coins, and some go for jaw-dropping prices. In many cases, just one coin in extraordinary condition has changed the financial future of its owner. The 1942 wheat penny is a family heirloom, a symbol of resilience passed from generation to generation. For others, it's a silent treasure tucked away in a forgotten drawer waiting to be rediscovered. The lucky ones, check your coins. Look for the 1942 wheat penny. The 1942 Liberty wheat penny, also known as the Lincoln wheat cent, carries more than just its face value. It's a reflection of America's economic, political, and wartime atmosphere. Struck in the midst of World War II, this coin became part of everyday transactions during a time when every cent mattered. 1942, the United States had already entered World War II, and the economy was rapidly shifting toward military production. Materials like copper were being redirected for war efforts, including for shell casings, bullet jackets, and wiring in military equipment. Although the famous steel cent was issued in 1943, talks about changing the penny's composition had already started by 1942, making that year's issues particularly historic and transitional. The coin features the iconic profile of President Abraham Lincoln on the obverse, a design first introduced in 1909 to commemorate his 100th birthday. The reverse depicts two wheat ears symbolizing national prosperity, hence the term wheat penny. It was designed by Victor David Brenner, whose initials VDB sometimes appear, adding numismatic interest. The 1942 wheat penny was minted in Philadelphia, no mint mark, Denver D and San Francisco. While most examples are common, ultra-rare variety Jefferson nickel holds a special place in American numismatics. Though it doesn't feature the Liberty head design of earlier nickels, it still carries the word Liberty prominently and remains part of the enduring Jefferson series that began in 1938. Here is a detailed and long historical background on the 1960 Liberty 5-cent coin. The 1960 Liberty 5-cent coin is part of the Jefferson nickel series, which started in 1938 and continues to this day, with various design modifications. The 1960 issue maintains the original design by Felix Schlag, a German-American sculptor. Features a left-facing portrait of Thomas Jefferson, the third president of the United States. Along the left rim is the word "In God We Trust," and on the right side are the words Liberty and the year 1960, separated by a small five-pointed star, displays Jefferson's iconic home, Monticello, with the inscriptions E pluribus unum on top Monticello, in the center and 5 cents and United States of America. Below, the year 1960 was a pivotal time in American and global history, Kennedy defeating Richard Nixon, marking the beginning of a new era. From a numismatic perspective, the 1960s marked the end of silver coinage in dimes, quarters, and half dollars, though nickels never contained silver, except during World War II. This year also falls before the U.S. Mint made significant changes to coin production techniques, making the 1960 Jefferson nickel a classic of the pre-modern era. 1960, Jefferson nickels were minted at two major facilities: Philadelphia Mint, no mint mark; Denver Mint, marked with a small d. On the reverse to the right of Monticello, the mintage numbers are. This means the Denver minted coins are far more common. However, certain condition-sensitive coins or coins with errors are highly collectible, most circulated. 1960 nickels are worth face value 5 cents. However, collectors prize coins in uncirculated condition MS65 or higher, and those with full steps FS on Monticello's base, which indicates a strong, clear strike. Exceptional high-grade examples graded MS67 or higher by PCGS or NGC can fetch hundreds of dollars, especially if they have full steps. There are a few known error coins and varieties from 1960 that attract collectors. Double diop vs. DDO. Some 1960 nickels show doubling in the lettering or Jefferson's, where the D mint mark was punched more than once, often slightly misaligned. Die cracks and cuds. These can form from aging dies and are collectible. As minor varieties, collectors pay premiums for error coins depending on visibility and severity. Some rare error nickels can sell for $50 to several $100s. Condition plays a vital role in a coin's value. The Jefferson nickel replaced the Buffalo nickel in 1938 after a 25-year run. The U.S. Mint held a competition to select a new design, and Felix Schlag's portrait of Thomas Jefferson and Monticello was chosen. This design honored one of America's founding fathers and authors of the Declaration of Independence. Felix Schlag was a German immigrant who had arrived in the U.S. just a few years before winning the nickel design competition. His original Monticello design was rejected and had to be modified significantly. Nonetheless, his work would go on to appear on billions of coins. The Jefferson nickel design became one of the longest-running U.S. coin designs. From 1938 until 2003, Schlag's work appeared virtually unchanged on every 5-cent piece, making coins like the 1960 issue part of an iconic American legacy. 1960 marked the end of the Eisenhower era and the beginning of a new chapter with John F. Kennedy's election. The country was on the edge of the civil rights movement, the space race, and a cultural revolution. The nickel from this year serves as a time capsule of a pre-1960s America. In response to increasing demand for coins due to economic growth, the U.S. Mint produced large numbers